Who are the best replacements for Eberiche Eze? Who is the best captain this game week? Is this the week where we can make some early transfers to save ourselves some cash? And is it finally time to get rid of Areola? These are the talking points ahead of game week 14. Starting off then, we're going to talk about Eberiche Eze. Unfortunately, it looks like he's rumoured to be out for 3 to 4 weeks, which I think makes a good case to sell him. And I've got 3 players lined up who can easily replace him. First up is Anthony Gordon. He's already gone up to 5.8 million, but he really does look like he is the first choice left winger for that Newcastle team. I think of all the sub 6 million mids, he's probably the best. He certainly looks to be the most dangerous from open play at least. With Barnes being injured, I think he's got that spot locked down, to be honest. And with the defensive work rate that he puts in, I think Eddie Howe really likes him in that position as well. Decent fixtures coming up. Obviously, Man United at home next in game week 14. You could consider that a tricky one. But I think at St James's Park, Newcastle can beat and score against anyone. So I wouldn't let that put me off. Everton away, Spurs away. Certainly Spurs away is much easier than it used to be without Van de Ven in their team. And then Fulham and Luton, a really great run in their next 5 fixtures. When you look at the numbers he's putting up, 5 goals, 5 assists from 11 starts so far this season. Absolutely brilliant, in great value at 5.8 million. Next up is Cole Palmer, 5.2 million, so slightly cheaper than Gordon, but I think over the next few game weeks, probably not quite as strong, but you kind of get what you pay for with both players, in my opinion. I would say, obviously, the narrative around Cole Palmer is that he's a bit of a penalty merchant. Obviously, all 4 of his goals so far this season have come from the penalty spot. However, he's got 3 assists and made 1.7 non-penalty expected goals as well. So he is showing some threat from open play. One thing I'd say about Chelsea as well, their fixture run from game week 16 is absolutely brilliant. And I think to go without Cole Palmer for that run, with how highly owned I expect him to be and how cheap he is, I think you'd be taking a bit of a risk. So, you know, if you're looking to sell Eze, maybe just get on Cole Palmer now for that run from 16 onwards. And finally, obviously a little bit more expensive than Eze, but I don't think money is an issue in most FPL teams at the moment. Bryan Mbeumo is just the simple set and forget option. He does blank in game week 18, so if you're bringing him in, you've got to be prepared for that. Have a plan in place to either replace him with someone on the bench or sell him at that time. But he is just consistently knocking out returns against all levels of opposition this season. He's, of course, the Brentford penalty taker and talisman with no Tony in the team. He's guaranteed to start every game, play 90 minutes, doesn't play midweek in the Champions League or Europa League or anything like that. And yeah, I think he's one of 2 midfielders and forwards, like attacking players in the league at the moment, that have started and played 90 minutes in every game, along with Bruno Fernandes. That just shows how nailed he is. Yeah, really the only thing you got to watch out for is the blank in game week 18, but 0.87 expected returns per 90 for 7 million. Great value. Now, I wondered if you could do me a favour. If you're enjoying the video so far, please make sure to leave a like rating, subscribe to the channel as well, set the notification bell so you can see when I upload next. If you're really enjoying the video, please consider joining as a channel member. You'll get early access to all of my videos, and when I deadline stream, I'll give you priority when I rate people's teams in Draft Hound. You can also, if you want to support the channel in a different way, check out my shop down below. You can buy yourself a golden goal sticker or a mug. All right, back to the video. I thought I'd use this next little segment to address, should we make early transfers this game week? I think it's quite easy to follow along with who are, you know, the most popular players to bring in and the most popular players to sell. This is a snapshot I took this morning. We're on Tuesday at the moment, so obviously these numbers are going to go up, but I would anticipate these names to remain the same really across the game week, given the injuries that we've had in the form that some of these players are picking up. As you can see, top transfers in, Gordon and Mbeumo, the 2 players that I've recommended to replace the likes of Eze. Obviously, Matoma's injured as well. He's one of the top transfers out. Then we've got Zinchenko and Saliba. You know, Arsenal proven to be one of the best defences, well, the best defence in the league, so it's quite common for players to pick them. And Saka as well, I think similar reasons to the 2 midfielders, and obviously he's just a great option. Top transfers out, you know, if you're sitting on Bowen or Matoma, definitely expect a price drop. Son, Alvarez and Maddison too. What I would say is most of these players have already had a drop or one rise, but I'd say, I think for most of them, particularly if Bowen is declared to be out injured for a little while, and a lot of the guys that have been transferred in, I do expect them to have another rise or another fall, and that begs the question, is it worth making early transfers to avoid that? And I think I've got a couple of scenarios, a few players that it might be worth doing it on, and I'll show you that now. So yeah, when to make early transfers? Well, I would say it's safe to do so. Well, obviously they could still get training injuries, right? But if the player that you're bringing in doesn't have a midweek game, I think you can say it's relatively safe to make an early transfer. So a couple of players, for example, that don't play midweek in either the Champions League or Europa League, we've got Mbeumo and Palmer. However, the likes of Saliba, Saka and Gordon, they've all got a Champions League fixture midweek. So I certainly wouldn't be rushing to bring Saliba, Saka and Gordon in right now, just because anything could happen in those Champions League games, right? I expect Gordon to play. They got PSG, and Saka just plays every game for Arsenal, doesn't he? And he has had that niggling injury that's, has been refed in him all season. So yeah, I'd avoid bringing those players in, but the likes of Mbeumo and Palmer are definitely safer to do so. And yeah, the key point being they don't have a midweek game. I'd also say if you're absolutely set on a player, there's one player that you really want to target, and that you'll probably, by the end of the week, be priced out of a move. Say you're already, you make the move and you got 0 in the bank now, that might be a time where you want to do it, particularly, if it's the difference between someone like Mbeumo and Palmer, for example. If you think Mbeumo is going to massively outscore Palmer, that might be a move you want to make. I'd also say if the player that you're selling is definitely out long term, like of Matoma, maybe Eze, and you do expect the price to drop by a good margin, maybe a couple points of a million throughout the game week, then that's also worth doing. I think that's worth a transfer. Again, really, if the player that you're bringing in doesn't have a midweek game, I'd say that's the least risky option. So yeah, that's my thoughts on early transfers. Now it gets really tricky when we talk about captaincy. So looking at the Draft Hound expected points, Salah leads the way and is the Draft Hound captaincy choice. 8.2 expected points compared to Haaland at 7.5. Although I think there's a little bit more to the story than just expected points. So I'll go through that now. Now, there is a bit more to the story, but I don't think it necessarily helps with decision making, unfortunately. So what I thought I'd do is compare the two players' stats and the two players' opposition that they're playing, right? I think Salah and Haaland are by far and away the outstanding captains. Obviously, Salah's got Fulham at home, Haaland's got Tottenham at home, right? So you look at the defences over the course of the season, and there's not a whole lot to separate them for expected goals conceded, right? Fulham 21.87, Tottenham 21.28. However, when you look at the two teams comparatively over the last couple of games that they've played, that's the time obviously when Romero and Van der Ven haven't been in the Tottenham team. There's not a whole lot to separate the defences in terms of expected goals conceded. Tottenham's slightly better, but not by a whole lot. So when you look at the quality of the defences both teams are playing, I think they're quite similar. I think it's becoming a bit of a coin flip, to be honest. When you compare the two players for stats, Haaland's got more goals, Salah's got more assists. Comparatively, expected returns per 90 are quite similar. I'd say Salah scoring more points for goals than Haaland does sort of levels that out as well. At the moment, I've got to say, I'm pretty 50-50. To be honest, I'm probably favouring Salah because I do think Liverpool can keep a clean sheet against Fulham. That's worth 1 point. And I think, for goals, I think they're going to score similar. I think Salah scores more points for those. I'm just favouring Mo Salah at the moment, which is a bit of a change from my ultimate guide video. But I think, the way the Fulham and Wolves game played out on Monday night has kind of changed my opinion on Fulham a little bit. So at the moment, I think I'm just favouring Mo Salah. Now, Areola is the most popular keeper in FPL at the moment. However, he's only kept one clean sheet throughout the whole season, and I think players are becoming a bit tired of him. And with the way that, the demographic, the way that the game's going, I don't think money is necessarily an issue in most people's teams, so you don't need to have the cheapest goalkeeper in the game anymore. I think it could be time to sell him if you don't have any other fires to put out, so I've got some replacements next. Money no object, my number one replacement for Areola is David Raya of Arsenal. At 4.9 million, obviously he's a little bit more expensive, but he seems to be Arsenal's first choice goalkeeper, especially considering when Ramsdale has played, he's not looked all that confident and good, to be honest. The Arsenal fixtures coming up are really good. They're the best defence in the league for expected goals conceded. He's obviously going to be ineligible to play against Brentford, but they literally just did that in game week 13, so it's not something really to worry about. He started 8 games, only conceded 6 goals and kept a clean sheet in half of the games that he started, and that's obviously much better than Areola has done. So yeah, money being no object, Raya is my number one replacement. I spoke quickly about Chelsea's run from game week 16 onwards when going through Cole Palmer, but it's really something I think people need to look at. I'm not sure beyond Sanchez and Palmer there are any Chelsea players I really fancy. Like defensively, there's not a whole lot that's nailed or likely to get attacking returns, and they don't really seem to have a talisman at the moment beyond Cole Palmer. So I think Sanchez and Palmer are the two Chelsea players that I'd fancy. And so, you know, Sanchez as a goalkeeper I think is a great option. Chelsea, they're not the best, but they're one of the better teams in the league this season for expected goals conceded. Already mentioned the run they've got from game week 16 onwards. I just think he's a safe bet, you know. Well, I say as safe as it gets, really. That run from 16, I think, will bring about some clean sheets, and he's made 2.76 saves per game, so I think he's likely to get some saves bonus points as well. Yeah, I just think he's going to outscore Areola in the long run. It might be time to make a move. Right, and finally, a slightly left field shout, but Kelleher, it looks like Alisson's out for up to 4 to 5 weeks. Well, that's at least what the rumour's saying with his hamstring injury. So Kelleher could be starting, if I pronounce that correctly, should be starting for Liverpool over the next 3 or 4 game weeks. Most people will have Areola and Turner as a double up, so you don't actually have to sell Areola for this guy because he's the same price as Turner. So you could simply get rid of Turner, have 2 starting goalkeepers, and play yourself a nice little rotation. In 17 and 18, Liverpool have got Man United and Arsenal, so you could potentially start Areola in those game weeks and then play Kelleher for Fulham, Sheffield United, and Crystal Palace. He hasn't played a game this season, so there's not a whole lot of stats to go off of. Just the fact that Liverpool are looking pretty decent defensively, and the one thing to consider, I think, because Alisson is such a good goalkeeper, he sort of covers up for some of the, you know, Liverpool defensive frailties. So I don't think, you know, with Kelleher in the team and Alisson in the team, I don't think, you know, Liverpool are quite as strong with Kelleher in the team. However, those 3 fixtures coming up are really nice against teams. Well, Fulham obviously scored 3 on Monday, but against teams that by and large have struggled a little bit this season. So, you know, he could keep some good amount of clean sheets, and he could, of course, make some saves. And I don't really think you want to ask for much more at 3.9 million. The only thing I would say, of course, he takes up a third, potentially Liverpool spot. I have only got 1 Liverpool player at the moment in Mo Salah. Perhaps you're in the same position of me, and then perhaps it makes sense. However, probably if you doubled up on Liverpool players, there's other Liverpool guys you probably want to bring in as a priority. So it sort of suits, well, the move makes sense if it suits your team, but I couldn't ignore him as an option. Alright, and that's the end of the video. If you enjoyed it, I'd really appreciate if you could leave me a like rating, subscribe to the Golden Goal channel, which should be just there. Let me know in the comments what you think of that. You know, all my opinions in there are obviously my own, so yeah, if you disagree or agree, let me know in the comments, and I'll catch you in my next video.